Welcome back. Well, in a rare update late last week, defense officials confirmed that Canada's troops in Iraq are spending more time on the front lines, bringing the fight to ISIS. The defense minister says the risk has not changed to our troops, but that's not quite how National Defense describes it.
What is different is that the mission has changed since the spring, as I mentioned. It's gone from a more defensive posture to a more offensive one. The key takeaway for Canadians is that we are more engaged at the line. There should be no doubt about that. And by extension, the risk has increased to our troops.
So joining me now is the Parliamentary Secretary for the Minister of Defence, John McKay, and from Winnipeg, Conservative MP and defence critic James Bezan. Thank you both very much for being here. John, let me start with you. So who's right? Because both can't be right. The minister says no increase in risk. The general in charge of the mission says there is an increase in risk. So what is it?
Well, I think today in question period, the minister clarified the position. Of course, there's an increase in risk. It's a train, assist, and advise mission. So the train part has been going on for quite a while now, and that's a less risky aspect to the mission. The assist and advise now is coming up to the fore because the fight is being taken to the Daesh people.
Well, let's look precisely at that. When we talk about the fight being taken to them, Canadian troops are now fighting alongside Peshmerga troops. We're engaging the enemy, is that correct?
Well, assist and advise are
well, what does that
partners.
mean in English?
Well, assist and advise simply means that our rules of engagement do not allow Canadian troops to go into offensive
Not
situations.
unless they're being fired upon.
Not unless they're being fired.
If they are being fired upon, they can let loose
with our guys.
The dogs of war, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. And how much have we done of that? How intensive have we been in response to taking incoming shots?
Well, I think there has been an uptick in intensity. It's clearly an Iraq security fight. The Iraq security forces, it is their fight, it is not our fight. And so that is largely dictated by the folks in Baghdad and the organizers of primarily the attack on Mosul.
Let me bring James Bezan into this, because Mr. Bezan, you were complaining late last week about the fact that we simply don't have a lot of information about what's going on over there. We don't know the numbers. We don't know exactly what type of fracases we're getting involved with. Is that your core complaint, is that we simply, that the mission is opaque as opposed to transparent?
Definitely, Tom. If you look at it, when we were government, we were under pressure all the time from the Liberals when they were the third party, saying that we weren't being transparent enough, even though we provided over 19 technical briefings during the time that our troops were on the ground in Iraq and our airplanes were in the combat mission against ISIS. And we also, of course, were providing updates as our troops came under fire. Now the Liberals are hiding behind a curtain of secrecy here, doing very few technical briefings. This was only the fourth one in the year that they've been government. And of course, now they're saying they're not going to tell us when our troops are actually involved in combat operations. So we do support the advise and assist, the command and control that the Canadian Special Operation Forces are so well known for. But Canadians deserve to know exactly what is happening on the ground as it unfolds, and without compromising the operational security concerns raised by the generals yesterday in the briefing.
Let me throw that to John.
Yeah, well, James' qualification there was without compromising, and that's always the delicate dance. It's not all a bunch of nice people that watch your show, Tom. It's actually some people from Daesh. So we got to be very careful about what we say.
I get operational security. I've been in Afghanistan. I've been in a number of theaters of war. But the fact is, I was in Afghanistan. I was inside the wire and outside the wire in Afghanistan when we were fighting not too nice guys over there who also could get television reception and see what I was saying. So what's the difference?
Well, I think there's a substantive difference. We're you're in a different theater, but you're actually in a far more confined theater.
Well, Kandahar was pretty confined. We did not have a big area.
But so also was Mosul. So also is is Kurdistan. I think that's the concern that the minister has, that we would be inadvertently disclosing information which possibly would affect. And when James' party was the government, bear in mind it was largely an aerial mission. And it's relatively easy to say, well, we had so many
Not at all,
airplanes
John.
in the air, and so many bombs dropped, and so many
James, get in.
targets, things like that.
Well, you know, I don't know if John's sitting there with a smile on his face or not. I can't see, but you know, for him to say that it was easier for us, you know, we had 69 Operation Forces members on the ground that were there in the advise and assist, and were going to and from the front line as things were unfolding, so they could give better instruction as well as provide better training. So now that there's more troops, and we don't even know how many more Canadian troops are on the front line, the environment hasn't changed. Yes, it's become more of an offensive for the coalition as they try to retake Mosul, but the Daesh, or ISIS, as I'd prefer to call them, is just as sophisticated now as they were a year ago. Nothing has changed. They will get this information either through social media, they'll get this information because other coalition partners will be reporting it to the public, but what we are seeing is a standard set by the Trudeau government, mainly because the PMO doesn't want people to start thinking that we are in a combat operation. They want to keep people in the dark, and we still don't know what's going on now, what's happening in Iraq. We don't know what's going to happen with the peacekeeping mission. There's nothing coming before Parliament for votes, for debate, and this is a complete break of a promise by the Liberals to be more transparent.
Mr. Bezan, though, let me stick with you for a second here, because when the Liberal government ended the air campaign, took the CF-18s back to Canada, your party was saying that we were walking away from the fight, that we have given up the basis of the fight against ISIS. But you would agree, I would think, right now, that this is a much more robust mission than you ever directed when you were government.
Well, we had the 69 Operation Forces. We support the more robust mission on the ground. We support having more Special Operation Forces there, assisting our coalition partners, including the Kurdish Peshmerga, get rid of ISIS. And now they are talking about defeating ISIS, and that's something that I think all Canadians embrace. The unfortunate thing is that they didn't leave our CF-18s there to provide the air cover. As we see, the Auroras are still going out there and doing reconnaissance. They're still out there painting targets. They've got troops on the ground.
Right, but you're agreeing that your previous statements are now inoperable because, in fact, it is a much more robust mission?
We said, even when the minister proposed the more robust training mission, that we'd support it. But again, they said training. The Liberals always backed away as opposition, and in their early months here as government, they walked away from command and control and the advise and assist. They were there on a training mission, and that's the bill of goods. They sold that bill of goods during the campaign.
It's always been a train, assist, and advise mission. And that language has not changed. That component of the mission has not changed. We are now moving to a different phase. There's been a lot of training that's gone on, and apparently quite successful training, because the Peshmerga are actually taking the fight to Daesh. So the assisting and advising part is clearly a little bit more dangerous.
But you know, in military speak,
it is all hypocrisy coming from the Liberals, because if you look at what happened in campaign, if you looked when they were the third party, when I was doing all the different TV panels, when I was a parliamentary secretary, they were continually accusing us of being in combat because of the advise and assist role, and now they're doing just that, which we do support. But we haven't changed our mantra. They are the ones that have changed theirs.
Well, the rules of engagement have been rewritten by the Chief of Defence Staff. No Chief of Defence Staff ever sends his troops into harm's way without appropriate rules of engagement. The rules of engagement are not combat rules of engagement.
I've only got a second left, but let's just make sure that when we say training and assisting, we could take casualties, right?
And this is a theater of war.
Okay. John McKay and James Bezan in Winnipeg, thank you very much for starting this discussion. It's one that's going to keep on going.
I bet so.
And a happy Thanksgiving to you both. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom.